Fellas, we're in an epidemic right now. Look to your left, this manga just ended. Now look to your right, oh, now that manga released the final volume. All of your favorite manga and anime right now is slowly breathing the last breath while multiple new series take their place like a phoenix rising from the ashes. To give a quick intro, this is episode 2 of a 2-part video where I go over a bunch of brand new manga that I've personally been enjoying and want to talk about. If you want to know the previous 4 I talked about, you're gonna have to check out part 1 and you can go watch it right now. I wasn't asking. But I do want to reiterate, I had to be cutthroat on which series I selected to talk about here. If you end up seeing a series you like on this video, but I don't discuss, it's not me knocking it down, but rather me having a very specific reason for talking about another manga in its place. With that being said, I have a lot to go through, so let's stop stalling and y'all get to hear me yap for a bit. Now, I would say the largest and most vocal manga anime fans are the shonen action battleheads. So let's feed the oh so starving dogs that have so little options and so little choice. Oh, I can't say that with a straight face. This is Ichi. He is a witch. Ichi the Witch. What the As a collaboration between the author Mashamita Imakun and the artist of Act Age, Ichi the Witch is a very fun read that has a unique way of pulling you in. Ichi was abandoned by his father in the middle of the forest when he was only 6 years old and given a knife to, well, you can guess.
Your life literally is as valuable as a summer ant.
However, this boy clung to life and adapted to the wilderness, retaining his human nature and eventually finding other people he could mingle with, but developing some keen animalistic instincts and intuition. At one point in time, Descaras, someone who is touted to be the strongest witch, faced off against the mighty magic King Ororo. Magics, magic with a K, are beings that are quite literally magic incarnate, magic with a C, but are typically hunted by witches due to how dangerous they often are. In order to beat a magic, the witch must complete some sort of trial. Unfortunately, King Ororo's trial is specifically that girls can't beat him, and since girls are the only people that could obtain magic and thus become witches, King Ororo was essentially undefeatable. That was until he triggered Ichi's combat instinct, saved the Descaras, defeated Ororo, and inherited his magic, becoming the first ever male witch. Ichi the Witch.
Oh my god, he's so goddamn cool!
The manga is structured in a lightweight adventure of the week style format where you follow around Ichi as everybody ponders what the fuck are they supposed to do, like there's supposedly the first ever male witch. And if I had to give Ichi the Witch a strength outside of having great artwork and very fun action sequences, it would be its charisma and character writing. I know what you're thinking. Yes, literally every other important character excluding Ichi is a girl. Is this a harem? Not yet, at least, and that gives it a breath of fresh air and a niche. Each and every character is uniquely written and just as entertaining to watch. For example, Descaras is narcissistic and egocentric in a good and funny way, while Ichi causes chaos wherever he wanders because of his upbringing, and in almost all cases, he's the only guy in scene. I guarantee you, it won't take more than 2 chapters in order for you to fall in love with a character. Literally everyone that you get introduced to is uniquely written, fun to watch, and these character dynamics, along with the action sequences, is a very lifeblood in the series. I mean it when I say right now Descaras is climbing to become one of my favorite characters. Not just in this manga, or manga generally, but just generally, period. Yeah, we have Ichi, but whenever Descaras is in scene, she's just so fun to watch. Oh yeah, everybody in this manga is actually dripped the fuck out. So if you need a final reason to read this, there you go. Yeah, that has a bunch to digest. Apologize. It was a lot to summarize even for me. So, how about this? Let me slow it down for you with this next series. Hayame no Kobito, also known as Blooming Love, is a nice, comfy romance manga that I could imagine be very much appreciated right now. Shintaro Ibuki was asked to make a box by a teacher because he's artsy and good at drawing, where I don't know how that logic connects, but okay. Unsurprisingly, he was struggling very badly until Kyoko Tsukusaki steps in and finishes a project for him. In that instance, Shintaro accidentally left out her sketchbook, and Kyoko dashes out of the room out of embarrassment. That's how these people first met, and that marks the end of the first chapter. In fact, these two knuckleheads don't even exchange names until the third chapter. Alright, you may be asking, where's the hook? What's the niche? Tell me about the gimmick! You see, that's the thing. There's none of that here. Haname no Kobito is extremely simple, super down to earth, uneventful, and relaxing, and it's because of those reasons why I chose this manga to talk about. This is your slice of life romance that is quite literally as slice of life as you can physically get. First meeting someone, falling in love, realizing feelings, and how the influence of another person so important to you can push you to become an even greater version of yourself. Not like I know. Blooming love is slow, uneventful, may occasionally be a chapter about nothing, or a chapter where the two are devoting themselves to their own projects, or a chapter that conveys everything it needs to without uttering a single word. And you will still be injected with that daily dose of wholesome diabetes that every romance manga enjoyer desperately craves for. Trust me when I say that Haname no Kobito is a much welcome change of pace and that people need to keep their eyes on. But if you're a Gundam fan, I recommend you to keep your eyes on this next manga, Hero Organization. So actually, I unfortunately have to spoil the first two chapters in order to properly summarize it. It would be impossible for me to otherwise. So I recommend you first, like, comment, subscribe, do all the good shit for me, and then I heavily recommend you read the first two chapters, and after you're done with that, come back to this video if you don't want to be spoiled. Trust me on this, reading it is actually just that much different than hearing my essentials only summary. If you've already read it, or you don't care, here we go. After expanding to the stars, humanity has had to deal with the new threat of space monsters called Star Beasts. To combat Star Beasts, agents were made for humanity to ride them into space and rip and tear these creatures. Being an Aegis pilot is super looked up to and heavily glorified, to even have video games for kids to play and action figures to collect. We look at Leonidas Tyler, who actually just won a championship of one of these video games, who is the son of Ryu Tyler, a mechanic who creates a bunch of generic Aegis mechs. Leo looks up to his father like a hero for making these mechs, and Ryu is a single father who hopes to be someone his son can be proud of. Ryu's life hasn't always been easy. He has seen better days, and his life was not what he expected for himself. But as a father, he would go to hell and back for his son. After tons of back and forth, debate, self-reflection, Ryu was successfully recruited to be a civilian Aegis pilot for a year in order to protect his world. Though his main motivating factor was, instead of saving the world, it was because of his own feeling of mediocrity and to prove his worthiness to raise his own extremely talented son. Thus, we follow Ryu's one-year expedition through the vast unknown to validate his own self-worth towards his son. Now, I have to clarify something real quick, hold on. You are currently assuming that Ryu is the main character of the manga. You thought very, very wrong. Ryu goes all out, defending a cargo ship full of people from a Star Beast, using up tons of his life force and energy to chase it away. Despite the odds stacked against him, he, a normal civilian, saved a bunch of lives. Unfortunately, the higher-ups wanted a different type of hero. Another soldier swoops in and blows Ryu to pieces, killing him and turning his story into a martyr. Tampering with his gun, faking his potential, playing with his emotions, killing him in cold blood. All for pushing military propaganda. With his father dead, the story instead focuses on Leo, who eventually finds out that his dad was murdered in cold blood by the idols he looked up to. So his objective is to try and climb the ranks to find out who killed his father and why. Sure, this series is still early on, but we got an early plot twist, cool artwork, a great plotline, nice mystery, and a buff military mommy! What more could you ask for? It is obvious that there's still a bunch of mystery and story left to explore in this manga, but if you are a Gundam fan, there's no reason why to not at least give this series a try. And thus, we are finally at the last manga, and I can't wait to introduce y'all to Dragon and Chameleon, a manga about making manga shonenized. If you live in this world and you don't know who Hanagami Garyo is, you'd actually be living under a rock. A person who absolutely loves manga and is the author of the world's most well-known manga and anime, Dragonland. While working on the next chapter of Dragonland, his crew enlists the help of the rookie mangaka Miyama Chameleon Shinobu as an assistant, who has the ability to copy absolutely anyone's art style, but they can't write for shit while having a nasty personality, thus being pretty hard to work with. However, these two accidentally fall down the stairs together and somehow end up swapping bodies. When they finally woke up, Miyama the Chameleon refused to go back to his original body. He has access to the notes of the current greatest mangaka with an already mega popular series hand-dropped gifted to him, and he can imitate his art style without an issue? For someone as twisted as Miyama, why would he go back? Hence, the story revolves around this chameleon posing as a mighty dragon, trying to stop down his competition, while Hanagami tries to climb back up and surpass his magnum opus of a series. Again, this is manga making shonenized. There are training arcs, you meet other new rising authors, there are multiple factions, etc., etc. Now, some of you might have thought it, maybe not. But let me say why I am specifically talking about this manga. Right now, there's only circumstantial evidence that can easily be debunked, but it's my theory that Hanagami Garyo is supposed to be an ode to the legendary Akira Toriyama, who tragically passed away early last year. With how to describe the impact of Dragonland, the fictional manga in this world, the heavy presence and theme of dragons in this actual manga, and how they describe just how famous and important Hanagami Garyo is in the series, the number of mangakas that can reach the level of fame, impact, and reverence Hanagami Garyo reached in real life can only be counted on one hand. Two, if you want to do a deep examination, and one of those is most definitely Akira Toriyama. Of course, Dragon Chameleon was made before he passed away, but when I thought of this connection, whether I'm right or wrong, it'd be insane of me to not end in this manga. Thematically, it's just too perfect. When a new mangaka tries to create the first series, they naturally look to those that came before them, the ones that set the paving on the ground for them to walk on. Series that brought them happy memories and the very inspiration to become like the mangaka they loved, to apply the lessons they have learned after being long-time assistants to the mentors. And when a manga is finally about to sunset, the last chapter, the final volume, the final episode of the anime, it leaves the doors open for a new one to take its place. Oftentimes, this means new blood can step up into the spotlight, while others can take a step back, relax, enjoy the sunset, and either start working on the next series or begin their retirement. A passing of the torch, per se, to aim to do the same thing that the authors they look up to did for them, and maybe surpass where they left off. This is why I wanted to talk about Dragon Chameleon. Thematically, both in theory and in this actual story, they fit too much in theme of what I'm talking about today. In my opinion, it is a great find and a new series that I can't recommend enough. So with that being said, here are your final 4 manga that I wanted to talk about. If you want to know the previous 4, you're gonna have to watch part 1. So in total, I gave y'all 8 new manga I could recommend. Shit, I mean, you have to like at least one of them, for crying out loud. If you're still complaining there's no good new series, that's on you. That's on you at this point. But that's it for this 2-part series. If you liked what you saw, which you probably did if you watched up to this point, you can, like, comment, subscribe, do all that good shit for me. At the core, this is a variety channel. I do other stuff outside of manga and anime. Check some of my other content out. It doesn't hurt. Just take a look, see if there's anything that catches your interest. It was a ton of work making these 2 videos alone. Literal months of previous research, waiting for new installments, scripting, editing. So please, I'm on my hands and knees actually. I'm begging you. Like, comment, subscribe, please. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, I'll go do something else.